Bria Hartley with the sinister grin, right? This malevolent look that's on her face right now, clearly smiling after injuring Sophie Cunningham, man.
Bria Hartley just took Sophie Cunningham out of the game with what looked like a brutal leg collision.
Let's be clear here. Sophie Cunningham was targeted. Let's be very, very clear here. But Sophie Cunningham was flat out targeted by a dirty player.
A single frame can change an entire season. In one shot, cameras caught Bria Hartley with a grin as Sophie Cunningham limped away in visible pain. Was it a harmless expression in a chaotic moment? Or proof of something darker on the court? Tonight we break down the play, the reactions, and the ripple effects without the noise. If you care about player safety, competitive fire, and where the league draws the line, you're in the right place. Before we dive in, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss the full story behind the box score. And yes, if you appreciate deep dive breakdowns that respect both the players and the game, subscribe now. It helps the channel grow and it keeps conversations like this honest. Ready to roll the tape? Let's start at the moment of impact, then pull back to see everything the wide angle reveals. The first key lies in the angles that most fans never get to see.
Sophie Cunningham was targeted, y'all. I'm telling you right now, Sophie Cunningham was targeted by Bria Hartley, and it just is what it is. It is what it is. I don't want to sit here and play games and act like, you know, she wasn't. She was targeted by Bria Hartley, and that's just the fact of the matter. And people can act like it's not all they want. I told you guys this girl was a dirty player, and that's all she did today was show how dirty she is.
It starts with pace. Hartley attacks downhill through traffic in the second quarter, shoulders square, ball protected, eyes on the glass. Cunningham reads it and shades over, trying to be first to the spot. Contact is not just possible, it is probable. Hartley leaves her feet, her momentum carries right through the lane line, and hips and shins collide with Cunningham's right leg. Instantly, Cunningham crumples, hand and knee, and the sound in the arena changes. Trainers sprint. Teammates freeze, and then the camera cuts away. Two more details. First, the landing. Hartley's right side makes lower leg contact rather than a clean shoulder hit. Second, the floor geography. The drive starts outside the slot and finishes near the restricted arc. Help rotations in that zone are messy. None of this proves malice. It does explain why the injury risk spiked. So what turned a hard basketball play into a lightning rod? The next few seconds. Cameras find Hartley's face as
all kind of excuses to say that Bria Hartley is not a dirty player. Let me tell y'all something, man. Come on in here. Come on in here, man. Let me tell y'all something. If it quacks like a duck, walks like a duck, eats like a duck, it's a duck, man. Come on, man. She is the dirtiest player in the WNBA right now, winning the trophy. All right? Winning the trophy for it. Don't sit here and try to tell me Bria Hartley is not a dirty player.
Cunningham is helped away, and one still image becomes the story. That's where the temperature truly rises, and that's where we go next. The transition from contact to expression is the bridge that carried this moment from a box score note to a national debate. One frame. That's all it took. As Sophie Cunningham is helped toward the tunnel, a broadcast camera captures Bria Hartley with what looks to many like a smirk. You can call it a grin, a reflex, a mask under stress. Whatever the label, the image traveled faster than any slow-motion angle of the play itself. Fans paused, screenshotted, zoomed, and reposted. The caption did the rest. Once a narrative attaches to a face, optics can outrun facts. Why do athletes smile in the immediate aftermath of collision or chaos? Sports psychologists point to several possibilities. Adrenaline can produce odd facial microexpressions. Could Hartley have meant nothing by it? Absolutely. Could viewers reasonably read it as cold? Also yes.
Hand is down. My goodness.
Indiana Fever fans wake up pissed off today. Pissed off. Not only are we getting assaulted, but they're smiling about it. The sixth time they've smiled, laughed, and cheered on are Indiana Fever players getting assaulted, getting injured, and it pisses me off.
That is the paradox. The same image can be a stress tell to one person and a taunt to another. The camera neither indicts nor acquits. It only immortalizes. And that permanence is why this moment exploded beyond the baseline and into the broader conversation about how competitors ought to carry themselves when an opponent is hurt. Here's the pivot. If optics were the spark, officiating became the accelerant. Viewers waited for a stoppage, a review, a box at the scorer's table. None came. That choice shaped the outrage more than any facial expression could, and it set the stage for the next storm. When a league is already under a microscope for consistency, silence feels loud. A grin becomes a symbol, fair or not, and symbols can carry a season's frustrations in a single still.
This is
Hartley deserves zero benefit of the doubt. And Sophie Cunningham's family not too happy. I believe
you can tell Bree Hartley, in my opinion, she launched herself into her knee. She did. And I've seen some of the reaction on
Moments after the collision, everyone expected a pause. Injury timeouts and video review exist for exactly this kind of sequence. Instead, the game moved along. No elongated huddle by the monitor, no extended discussion, no attempt to reclassify the contact. That absence reshaped the conversation. Fans who might have sat with uncertainty now sat with anger. If there was nothing to see, why not prove it with a review? If there was something to see, why was there no corrective action? Officials make split-second decisions, and many of those calls are defensible in real time. The issue here is not only the initial judgment, it's the absence of a second look when a player is clearly injured. The threshold for review should be lower when player safety is in question. You do not need to declare intent to acknowledge risk. A common foul drive can still produce a flagrant outcome. That's why the rule book separates contact from consequence.
Atkins, 7 to shoot. Cardoso rolls, catch. Cardoso over the top, can't get it. Reese fights for the rebound and a foul, and this time gets a little chippy and a shove on Nelson Ododa. And listen, this arena typically we'll see some ringside fights, and Charles this time trying to fight through the official, points a long finger as both teams walk to their respective corner.
But we mentioned the physicality and that last possession, the contact being let go. This time, I think it was accidental by Hartley. And then Reese just with a big reaction. And Tina Charles, being the vet that she is, going to stick up for her team. If you know anything about Angel Reese, she is going to go hard. She's tough. She cares about making a stand for her team. And I love the reaction from Tina Charles as a vet. You want to see your vet.
To be clear, a review would not guarantee a different outcome. It would, however, provide an explanation anchored in criteria instead of emotion. And explanations are what keep a single play from turning into a referendum on the league's priorities. The missed pause became the megaphone for every grievance that followed, which takes us from the court to the court of public opinion, where the clip turned into a bonfire. Add a simple protocol, and you diffuse 1,000 arguments. Stop the clock when a defender grabs a knee. Initiate an automatic look from the replay center. And communicate the decision with a short explanation. That 40 seconds can preserve credibility, dial down hostility, and set a precedent that players understand. Without it, the vacuum fills itself with speculation, and speculation rarely tilts charitable.
Mabry knifes off the screen. Charles is doubled.
And Indiana looks like they're in a zone right now.
Kick out and stolen by Mitchell. Explodes 2-on-1. Sims elevates for 2 and a foul.
Bug with their point guards. This is where you have Odyssey Sims coming in. Kelsey Mitchell making a great heads-up play here, but Odyssey Sims has done a great job early on coming in.
When an injury sequence spills beyond the hardwood, families speak up. Cunningham's sister, Lindsay, and her mother added their voices, not just to defend Sophie, but to call out what they view as a pattern. Their message was simple. Players who criticize officiating get fined quickly, yet moments that demand accountability from officials seem to fade without consequence. That contrast fuels the suspicion that the burden of restraint falls entirely on athletes, never on the system around them. Family reactions matter because they humanize the collision. To a viewer, it's a clip. To a sister, it's a person grabbing a knee and fighting tears. That perspective does not settle the question of intent, yet it reminds everyone that the stakes are physical, not just narrative. Injuries rewire seasons and shorten careers. When outrage pours through relatives and teammates, it's rarely about a scoreboard. It's about trust.
Backdoor Mitchell bouncing in the paint for two. Mitchell, the pig is snatched up. Mitchell squeezing through for two at the foul. Fouls on the other end. It's Mitchell launching it and connecting.
Trust can be rebuilt, but only with visible steps. Quiet back-channel explanations do little to calm a public storm. The clearer the process, the simpler the conversation becomes. Until then, families will keep amplifying what they see as selective accountability. And the longer that perception stands unchallenged, the louder the next backlash gets. Which brings us to the timeline that turned a heated game into a trending argument. In moments like this, one quote can travel farther than a full press conference. A pointed sentence from a family member crystallizes what fans feel and what opponents fear. It says the quiet part out loud. You can disagree with the conclusion and still respect the urgency behind it. That's why these voices carry weight. They sharpen the stakes, they compress the timeline, and they force everyone involved to answer for what happened in plain language.
Game is a home game. Listen to the crowd in Connecticut. Final score in overtime. Fever 99, Sun 93. Listen, Kelsey Mitchell. Every game.
Within minutes, the clip escaped the arena and entered the algorithm. The smile became a still image, the still image became a meme, and the meme became a verdict. That is modern sports discourse. People see 5 seconds, add 10 years of feelings about physical play, and publish a conclusion before the post-game show starts. Some celebrated the contact as toughness. Others called it reckless and asked why the league refuses to protect its own. Both sides found evidence that confirmed what they already believed. None of this means fans are wrong to feel what they feel. It means feelings benefit from context. Hard questions deserve more than hard captions. The league cannot control the timeline, but it can fill the information gap that fuels it. Until that becomes standard, incidents like this will keep breaking out of the game story and into the culture war. The lesson for teams and players is simple. If you don't explain your side quickly, somebody else will explain it for you.
First and foremost, they're good human beings. You know, they're selfless, they're tough, they don't care who gets the credit, they don't care whose day it is. They got something inside of them that you just can't teach. And, you know, they bring it out of each other. And it allows us to go through these incredibly tough times that we're going through, and always gives us a chance.
A short, calm post that acknowledges the injury, wishes recovery, and commits to review does not concede guilt. It establishes good faith. In a season where every highlight is a referendum, good faith buys time. It also signals to the locker room that empathy and competitiveness can live in the same sentence. That signal matters because the schedule will not pause for a debate thread. Context always returns. Viewers connected the collision to earlier flashpoints in Hartley's season. A hair yank on a rebound that sparked a confrontation with Angel Reese. A scuffle with Rebecca Allen that ended in ejection. A handful of chippy box-outs and hard ties-ups sprinkled across weeks of tape. Each incident by itself might be explainable. Together, they built a reputation that arrived at the collision before Hartley did. Reputation shapes interpretation.
And I'm just so incredibly proud of them for continuing to believe, for continuing to pull together, for continuing to step up. I mean, every single person on this roster impacts winning for us. And every single person on this roster is valued for how they impact winning, whether they play a second or not. They give and give and give to this team. And I'm thankful for this group.
That brings us to a harder question. If pattern matters to fans, should it matter to discipline? Grading incidents in isolation protects fairness, but ignoring a documented run of avoidable scrums signals that context is irrelevant. There is a middle path. Treat each play on its merits, then weigh recent similar actions when deciding fines or suspensions. It's how workplaces evaluate conduct everywhere else. The game does not need villains to be compelling. It needs consistency to be trusted. Until that balance is explicit, the public will do the calculus on its own. They will tally up old clips, add the new moment, and reach a sentence before the league reaches a paragraph. That speed gap invites cynicism. Close it, and you restore a basic fairness. Players should know what their runway is before they step on the floor. Fans should know what
They were part of a pattern that had begun to define Hartley's career.
And Indiana completes the greatest comeback in
Assassin Kelsey Mitchell has a new career high.
Media into overdrive. Fans saw this as the final straw. They were no
because everyone knows the stakes in advance and chooses accordingly. Injury is never abstract. For the Fever, Cunningham's absence hit a roster already stitching together rotations. When leaders sit, the floor tilts. Spacing gets tighter, ball pressure feels heavier, and late clock possessions multiply. Cunningham's value is not only her box score. It is her voice in a huddle, her willingness to take a tough assignment, and the way her presence steadies a second unit. Remove that, and a team's margin for error shrinks. Fans immediately ask the playoff question. Can Indiana survive another blow in a conference that punishes every 2-minute drought? The small things scale when the margin narrows, and survival often looks like stacking enough small wins until the rotation stabilizes again. If the Fever can protect the ball, steal a few possessions on the glass, and keep the paint free of easy runouts, they can tread water. That is not glamorous, but it buys time in a long season. Fans do not only judge the play, they judge the face after the play. Human beings are wired to read microexpressions for meaning, especially under stress. In sports, that wiring goes into overdrive. A grin becomes a message. A blank stare becomes indifference. A headshake becomes disrespect. The truth is that none of those translations are reliable in isolation, yet they feel reliable because our brains reward quick stories over incomplete data. So how should we judge moments like this? With humility. Give weight to patterns, to words after the game, and to how players carry themselves the next week. Hold people accountable without pretending to own their thoughts. Sports are compelling because they compress emotion into public theater. That is all the more reason to remember that cameras record behavior, not motive. Motive must be earned by evidence, not assumed by screenshot. For athletes, the practical takeaway is simple. Control what you can control. In the seconds after a scary play, look to your opponent first, then to your own bench, or for a hand, a word, a nod. You do not have to confess to care. You only have to signal that you see the person in front of you, not just a jersey. Those small gestures are not for culture optics. They're for culture, and culture is what carries teams when the season turns difficult. Step 1. Define automatic review triggers for lower leg collisions, especially when help defense is involved and an injury is apparent. The clock should stop without debate. A replay center can start the check while the on-floor crew ensures medical attention. Transparency breeds trust. Step 2. Publish a short same-night pool report when a review is not initiated in a visible injury scenario. Explain the criteria, the vantage points used, and the options considered. Fans do not need an essay. They need to know that the rule book was open and the standards were applied. Step 3. Graduated discipline that can account for recent similar conduct without predetermining guilt. Treat each incident on its own merits, then weigh pattern in penalty, not in call. That keeps game adjudication fair and post-game accountability meaningful. Step 4. Encourage immediate player-to-player check-ins after significant contact. No one wants to manufacture optics, but visible sportsmanship cools hot blood. A brief gesture helps the injured player and calms the audience. Step 5. Annual clinics that rehearse fall mechanics and mid-air bailout techniques for drivers. Players already drill balance and core strength. Add modules that teach how to scrub speed and rotate away from lower legs when a finish is no longer there. You cannot remove risk, but you can reduce the worst outcomes with trained instincts. Small, Consistent steps like these turn controversy into clarity and let competition carry the headlines. After hours of tape and testimony, the simplest truthful answer is often the least satisfying. The collision reads as reckless by outcome and preventable by technique, but intent is unproven. The smile reads as harsh by timing and combustible by context, but meaning is uncertain. Those paired truths leave space for reasonable disagreement. What they do not leave space for is indifference to player's safety or indifference to process. Reasonable people can land in different places. You may argue that repeated scrums make benefit of the doubt unrealistic. You may argue that slow motion criminalizes ordinary force. Both views carry valid concerns. That is why the league's job is not to referee feelings. It is to apply standards consistently, communicate them quickly, and update them when new patterns appear. If that happens, the conversation will move from personalities to principles. So where do I land? This play crossed the threshold of risk that warrants review and likely an upgrade. Not because a still frame looked bad, but because lower leg contact on a late slide is inherently dangerous. The history around the player narrows the margin further when considering penalty. That is not a character trial, it is a risk assessment. As for the optics, the path forward is empathy in action. Check on the injured player, acknowledge the moment, and let your game do the talking the next week. Fans will argue. That's part of sports. But if the league gets the process right, the argument can happen inside a framework both sides recognize. That's the closest thing to justice a fast game can promise. For the audience, one more lens helps. Ask 3 questions after any hard play. First, where could the contact have gone if either player made a safer micro choice? Second, did the officials use the tools available to them in the moment? Third, did the people involved respond in a way that showed the person on the floor mattered more than the debate? If you can answer yes to the last 2, outrage usually cools. If not, pressure should rise, and not just online. Pressure should rise inside the system that governs the game. That is how a painful night becomes a better one down the road. Not just for one team, but for the league. Accountability and empathy are not rivals. They are teammates, and when both show up together, the sport wins. Now I want to hear from you. Should Hartley face a suspension, a fine, or only a warning? Which part of the sequence matters most to you? The contact or the smile? Drop your take in the comments. Keep it sharp and respectful, and tell us what change would make the biggest difference next time. If you enjoy deep dive breakdowns that try to be fair without going soft, hit subscribe and tap the bell so you will not miss the next episode. Your support turns long nights of film into clear conversations, and it helps keep the focus where it belongs, on the game. Subscribe now so these conversations keep evolving with your voice in the mix. Until then, take care of each other in the comments, and keep your eyes on the fundamentals that make great basketball worth arguing about.